We're catching up with a special guy, a guy that has made waves down in MLS with the Orlando City Club. He is their newest GM, Niki Budalic. Niki, welcome, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Anthony.
Pleasure's all mine. Niki, let's talk about it. You got down there a year ago. You did a lot of the legwork and a lot of the contracts, and you settled in your first year in MLS. Tell us a little bit about that, what you enjoyed, what was a challenge for you, and then we'll speed it up and talk about this new position as general manager.
Yeah, well, it's been an exciting year. Obviously, we've been going through a lot of transition, and I think it's been good to get my feet wet and to learn about the business on this side.
So when you were offered the general manager's position, I'm sure you never hesitated. You're all set to take it. But what was going through your mind, thinking that now you're going to have to, for sure, settle down there in Orlando for much, much longer with your family and focus on the big job at hand?
Well, I think we were always thinking long term. So I think with the year that I had as the assistant general manager, it afforded me the opportunity to learn the ropes, learn about the process, learn about the club, the city, and build a longer-term kind of strategy and vision on how we wanted to move forward.
Niki, let's talk about Orlando. It is an unbelievable market. The fan support there is tremendous. When I talk about Orlando, I put them in the same wavelength as the Seattle fan support here with TFC, Montreal. I think what they have done there with that franchise since they entered into MLS has been fantastic in the community with their clubs. Talk about all the things that you yourself witnessed in your first year in regards to this club, not only on the pitch but off the pitch, the way they embraced this franchise.
Well, I think everybody has a perception outside the club that Orlando has a lot going for it, and I think you don't really appreciate it until you're here. I think the main thing is the way that they've connected with the community. The support we have all throughout the city at every single level, whether it's fans, whether it's sponsors, whether it's corporate, whether it's the politicians in the city. I think everybody's really, really supportive. We really are a major league franchise in this town, and I think you really feel the gravity of it when you're here. And you should definitely come down once, and when we build our new stadium, you see how far this club has gone.
Niki, let's be honest, it's 2 years in now, and I would say it's safe to say that the honeymoon is over. These great fans in your city there want to see a playoff game or two or more than that in 2017. You had a good mix last year, but not enough to get you into the playoffs. What in your mind do you believe you need to add in the offseason? Is it more midfield help? Is it someone else up front to help out Kyle? What do you need more help in?
Well, definitely at the back. I think it's no secret that we need to improve our goals against record. We're one of the worst teams in MLS, and that's been our area of focus in the offseason. I think having a little bit of stability in the squad and not having as much turnover and transition. So those two factors are very important to us this offseason.
Do you believe, Niki, you might have to go and pick up an MLS vet to put in that back end there? Someone that's been through the rigors and the wars of MLS seasons, maybe has a ring on their finger. What are you looking at specifically? Overseas to bring on someone in that defensive role, or someone that's experienced in MLS and understands?
I think we're looking for both. And if we can accomplish that with additions in the back line, that would be great. If that comes in a different role elsewhere on the pitch, that would also be a priority. So whether that's whatever position that is.
Niki, you know this area quite well, Ontario. You know the GTA. You're blessed to have some Canadian kids on your squad. Kyle Lauren, we know how unbelievable he's been in his first couple of years. Michael Cox, Richie Laria, both of those two. Let's talk about both of those two, Michael and Richie. Do you believe they will have an opportunity, a fair shot to be in that starting roster come 2017?
Well, we hope so. I think with both, they have a lot of potential. I mean, they're at different points in their career. Michael, a little bit older and more experienced, been around the professional game for a while. I think if he stays healthy, I think he'll have a chance to take the jump and go to the next step. Richie is his first year coming out of college. He is enormously talented, and it's up to us now and to him, really, to get the best out of him.
Now, Niki, obviously we've heard the rumors for the last number of months, and a guy that is in demand in Europe with some clubs, that is Kyle Lauren. He has had a tremendous couple years in MLS. Last year, we know, what a season he had. This year, not much of a letdown or a drop-off at all. I know that you guys would love to keep him, but what are the realistic, thoughts in your mind in the club if a player like this is wanted from a high-profile European club? Are you willing to listen? Are you willing to let this young man ply his trade in Europe?
Well, we're under no illusions that we're going to be the last club for Kyle Larin. I think he's obviously shown a lot of potential, not only with goal scoring, but he's rounded out his game this year. I think he's still a young player, and I think that he'll be the first to say that he has a lot to prove with us and in MLS. And I think it will be a matter of time when Kyle moves on, and I think whether that's sooner rather than later, we'll be working with him to see when the best time is.
Niki, you made a coaching change, and a coaching change, I believe, personally, for the better. Do you believe, when you mentioned the word stability a few minutes ago, that this is key to start fresh right away from training camp with an experienced coach, a guy that knows MLS, to get your team focused and ready at the job at hand?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jason's very, very experienced. Obviously, we targeted him when we decided to move in a different direction with the technical staff, and fortunately he decided to join our project, and we have a lot of faith in Jason. I think working with him now for 6 months, you can see how focused and dedicated he is. He's a winner. He's proven it at every level, as a player, as a coach, and for sure, I think now that he's had time to settle in, and we'll be able to make some moves to strengthen the squad. We're very optimistic that we're moving in the right direction.
Niki, when you're courting a player, whether from South America, Central America, or Europe, are you explaining to them everything in regards to MLS? Because I talk to a lot of agents, I talk to a lot of GMs, and I think sometimes they might not really, mention or get into the travel aspect of MLS. Because I've talked to some of the players that have come over from Italy, Mancuso and Di Vaio in years past, and Nesta, and they talk about the travel, how the wear and tear on them is unbelievable, on the mind, on the body, everything. Do you talk to these players and explain to them what they're in for if they're going to be part of Orlando City and MLS?
I mean, of course, it's a major factor in our league. There's no way of getting around it. I think you can talk about it until you're blue in the face, but until you actually experience it, I don't think people can appreciate the challenges that the travel in our league faces. So, yeah, absolutely. You have to mention it to prepare them for it mentally.
Talk about the weather as well. Your club obviously is fortunate, lucky enough to be in a beautiful climate 12 months of the year, 7 days a week for the most part. And then your team is traveling early on in the season to some cold climate cities like Toronto, Montreal, New York, Chicago. How is your team able to adjust to that, Niki? Because the humidity in Orlando, the heat, and then you go to real cold temperatures. Are you guys, taking your players maybe in training camp to some of these colder places so they're ready early on?
We generally don't address that in preseason. When the season starts, fortunately, it's not that humid here while it's still cold in the northern cities in our league, so it's not as big of a factor. But we'll definitely try to travel maybe in advance of the trip of the match, a couple of days to get acclimatized. But overall, it's probably harder for the northern teams to travel here as opposed to us going north.
Niki, a lot of the general managers in a lot of different sports in the world today are focusing on analytics. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't know if you are, but are you and your staff, taking into account this new department of sports world analytics?
I think we hired a video analyst, and he's been assisting us with some of the analytics that are prevalent now in our industry. I think it's something that we're looking at. I think we're using it, but I don't think we put all of our attention and focus into it.
Lastly, before we let you go, Niki, obviously the draft will be coming up in 2017. We know there's a couple players here in the GTA that are playing in NCAA, a couple guys from Sigma and some other clubs in Ontario that might be possibly in that mix. What are you looking for in that draft? Is it, again, in the back end? Is it in the midfield up front? What are you looking for?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of draft picks in this upcoming draft. We traded away our first-round draft pick last week for Donnie Toya in the expansion draft. So if we get a chance to get another draft pick higher up the board, I think we would be just looking for the best player available. Fortunately, we have the USL side as well, and that gives us an opportunity to develop some of the talent that may not be ready to jump into MLS.
Niki, when the announcement was made that you have become the general manager of Orlando City, I got to tell you, a lot of us here in the GTA, Kitchener-Waterloo area had a big smile on our face and how happy and proud we were for you because you came from these parts. You went to watch youth clubs play. You went to watch academy games, showcases, on and on. You were a guy that was out there like the rest of us that are out there in the GTA. So we couldn't be happier for you. We're proud of you. Good luck. And again, hopefully you can get into the playoffs because it wouldn't be unbelievable to see a great Canadian guy like you get into the playoffs, my friend.
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate the support.